I just got into bed for the evening, and I'm reflecting on the process with which I receive words. That piece that I posted today on the Word of God is what woke me up this morning. I was fast asleep, but dreaming. And in the dream, this happens frequently now, in the dream, in my sleep, words stream. And these words come in perfect order. There's no thinking mind. They're words, to the point where it's as if in the dream I let them flow, thinking that I'm capturing them. And then only when I wake up do I realize, no, you haven't captured them. You need to write them now to capture them. And so I pull out my phone and I start typing. And it's as if there's already a pocket of words that's loaded that just needs me to transfer them into like writing. And as soon as I start the process, the pressure eases up and it flows. The rest flows out. So they're not all loaded when I start writing. More's released as I start writing. But the thing that I'm reflecting on the most here is the voice is my voice. It's not an audible voice, but it is audible, if that makes sense. But it's my voice. It's not a different voice. It's not another voice. And so I'm wondering, not that this information is important, I'm just here with my musings, I suppose. I'm wondering whether there's another version of me that knows more than I do where I'm here in this flesh, that's transferring information to me, or whether the voice of God sounds like me. And again, not important. But one of the things that I talk about is the meaning of Judgment Day. And I think for me, one of the most miraculous things here is that I've shared many times that I really don't have a history of reading the Bible. And even from the beginning of this journey, I have been reluctant to approach the Bible any other way than how I have. Because I'm not a great reader. First and foremost, I'm not a great reader. And so I read best when I read based on interest, if I need information. And I only need information when I feel I have a problem to solve. That problem may be curiosity, pure curiosity. It doesn't have to be an issue that I need resolved. It's a major issue. So, for example, with this piece, I wrote it and finished writing it. The only reason I went to go and find the John 1:1 verse is because it came up. But I looked at what it said about Judgment Day, and I actually Googled, just tonight, I Googled the metaphysical meaning of Judgment Day. And it explains it the way I explained it, pretty much. It also provides a verse. It takes you to Matthew, Let me check. Yeah, so it actually, I just want to read this. It says, the great judgment day of Scripture indicates a time of separation between the true and the false. And that immediately made me think about the download that I shared as well earlier this week. The words were, temperatures will rise, fallacies will fall, it is what it is will take on a new meaning. And this is, I'm just really fascinated by all of this, because it's addressed here. It says, that great judgment day of Scripture indicates a time of separation between the true and the false. There is no warrant for the belief that God sends man to everlasting punishment. Modern interpreters of the Bible say that the hell of fire, Matthew chapter 5 verse 22, referred to by Jesus, means simply a time in which purification is taking place, which is how I felt this week, as if it's a purification. Judgment seat, Romans 14:10, is within man. A judging or discerning between the true and the false is going on daily in us as overcomers. We are daily reaping the results of our thoughts and our deeds. And it's not to say that I've never contemplated really what Judgment Day means. It's just how the writing unfolds, or unfolded today, similar to the part that I added around being able to decide who you are in an instant. And if you need to dive into the instant and allow it to become your forever. I'm just here wondering when my brain got wired this way. Or rather, when my brain made way for this type of processing. And I'm thinking out loud. I am thinking out loud. I have a comment here from @AshleyW954 saying, the Greek word logos, which was translated to word in John, is super interesting to me. The way it was used by the Greeks was like this infinite wisdom and intelligence accessible to everyone, by which we are able to reason and come up with new ideas and thoughts. Word is a pretty poor translation, if you ask me. By access to the infinite wisdom, which is the logos, we are able to bring God into the physical. You know, I actually had to Google what logos means, because I've heard the word, but again, this is not stuff I've ever thought about. I haven't studied the Bible to this extent. And pyramid energy really feels like some kind of a case study. That's what I've been thinking about today, because I'm also now thinking about what I can do with all this content and all these things I've been led to. And I'm really grateful for you, because anyone who's listening, because this would have all been a whole set of content with no context. But your comments and your interaction have encouraged me to continue to make the content, first of all, and is also like colored it in for me and helped me like create a thread, which also still requires a lot of balancing from my end, because I never want the audience to determine the content, otherwise that compromises the creativity and the creation, right? It's like that Instagram effect where you're creating for the algorithm and not for the purposes of creating. and creativity. I always want what I'm doing to be led from inside rather than from outside. So it is logical, but in interacting, it's just something I've always got to keep at the front of my mind, because inevitably what happens, and I'm sharing this, I suppose, for, again, creative purposes, what happens is inevitably you get sucked into the outside and you let it lead you, but that has a dead end because that's not from your own source. Whereas one's own source of inspiration is infinite. So I would never want to walk myself into a brick wall. But I really appreciate it. It says logos. This is the Merriam-Webster definition. It says logoi. The divine wisdom manifest in the creation, government, and redemption of the world, and often identified with the second person of the Trinity. You know, I find this extremely interesting because essentially this is the meaning of the word. And I gave it how many words? So many, like paragraphs to describe it, but I suppose that's poetry and writing, to expand on the concept. But the way it was introduced to me, it was as if Spirit used this needle and thread and the understanding of the start of a word to pull through meaning, which I then described without knowing that I was talking about creation. And I suppose what I'm saying is this is the gift of trusting the words as you get them. I think you've observed me in a lot of these downloads, even in my times of doubt. Again, I believe that's part of the process, part of the growth, but this is a testament to the result of believing in yourself and believing in the intuition, in your own intuition as you receive information. And this is not just about the download of words. Words are a tool for my own purpose, mine, and many of us. But for some people, and now I'm going to touch on a topic that I wanted to talk about on its own, but for a lot of people, that could be music, that could be like visual art, that could be a form of dance. And one character, one person, a figure that's been coming up frequently for me lately is Michael Jackson. I've been watching Michael Jackson videos with my children, and also a lot of Freddie Mercury. They love Michael Jackson and Freddie Mercury. As a parent, that leaves me in the position where I need to explain what happened to them and why they used to write, especially Freddie Mercury. Like, I had to explain to my daughter what Bohemian Rhapsody means and why he's singing about killing someone and not wanting to live. I rose to the occasion, okay? But when I think of Michael Jackson, I watch his videos, I'm captivated by this man, totally captivated by his art. He essentially, he dances as freely as he wants. He grabs his crotch and he's got the most amazing dance moves. Nobody could have told Michael Jackson to do what he did. Nobody could have said, dance like this, do that, repeat. People will love it. I mean, it's insane. But this is the king of pop. Can you imagine how deep Michael Jackson had to dig inside himself to bring this out of himself? I think he lived a very public life. He lived a very public life. He was under immense scrutiny. People have been ruthless about him, which almost at the opposite end of this makes it very clear, as someone on the journey, it makes it very clear how much suffering he must have been dealing with. Suffering that was not brought to the surface. Yes, there's stuff we know, but there's things that happened in his mind and in his heart that we are not privy to, and we will never be. But still, the man fulfilled his purpose. He did. He continues to inspire people, artists. And perhaps there's no Michael Jackson that's going to be repeated, but there's a huge lesson in that, in the purity of the inspiration and the purity with which you imagine yourself bringing it to the surface, and trusting that you'll have all the support that you need as you go, and that you don't need to know what's going to happen in the next second, minute, hour, day, year. You don't have to worry about that. Just last week, I was in the middle of a whole lot of decisions, and the logic that I actually came to was, the force that led me here is the force that's instructing me to make these decisions now and to make these changes, because yes, I have free will, but if I don't make these changes, I cannot allow for the next step to take place, unless I'm hoping for a tower, and I don't want that, because the universe is trying to help me get what I asked for. So I may not understand the methods and the ways, but when I get told, okay, press B or click on C, that's my job, that's my role, because I'm the human here. And so I've got the control here to push the button. And my logic said, the same force that has led me here is the force that's going to fix all those things I see as problems to allow for the next things to happen. And so there was a set of circumstances which I looked at and I was like, this is an obstacle. But then I was like, well, it's not my obstacle. That I have no control over that. Let me do what I can do. And I checked on that thing that day. It hadn't been done. I worked through this logic, made those decisions, and the following day I went to check on this thing and it had appeared. So I'm sharing this stuff because I don't know what all of your experiences are. But when I was working through that logic in my mind, I knew it in my heart, because again, I've had enough experiences to lead me here that have proven to me that there's a system that's supporting me. And I know I sound this sounds like I'm convincing myself of a theory. It's not that anymore. I suppose this next phase of my life and my journey is settling into this new reality. I'm settling into this new reality because reality has shifted for me. How I engage with reality has fundamentally shifted. I now see that the things that I don't quite believe, those are the things that take long. And the things that I believe, those things happen. And I've also observed that the lapse of that gap of time, let's call it the delay, is totally up to how quickly I can get my head and my heart around a concept. That is all. And so, for example, if I tell myself there's going to be a car parked outside the house tomorrow. No, I don't believe that. And so therefore it will not happen. It won't happen. There's no logic in that. The logic needs to make sense. It needs to make sense to me. And I'm not saying it needs to be possible. It needs to be, it needs time. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it needs to be feasible as far as I can action it. It needs to be feasible as far as I can action it. So there's a set of things that I need to action and a set of things that need to be actioned by the force. And if I'm able to fulfill my part, the force will back me. And boom. Anyway, these are my revelations over a cup of tea. But I'm also just saying that I believe it's also time now to get really particular about what one wants and why. I've heard so many things about manifestation, and I know a lot of people talk about this way of manifesting where you speak it into existence. It's only I'm now firm and comfortable in knowing that just speaking it is not enough. Perhaps it is for someone else. For me, it's not, because I'll always sit with that level of insecurity that where I know that I don't quite believe it and understand it fully, and therefore it might pop into my life, but then it will dissipate just as quickly, perhaps. So I can't trust it. And I can't trust it fundamentally because I don't believe it. And so if I believe it, if I actually believe it, not in a sense of fooling myself, if I actually believe it and understand it, and it's absolutely fine for me to say, God will take care of the rest. I believe that. So that I can add to the equation of my manifestation comfortably. But not where there's certain things I haven't done to help the situation, because if I understand that to be a necessary part of the equation, then I haven't actually fulfilled all of the criteria for this thing to happen. And so I had this picture that I would like, that had started manifesting, like what kind of life I want to live. And I'm not going to describe it fully now, but I mean, it's like an end goal sort of picture. But I think that's why some things feel like they take long, is because some of the detail hasn't been filled out. And so it's as if the spirit, universe, God, everything that supports me is waiting for me to get particular and to actually craft this thing. It's not something outside of you that's going to fill in the gaps, because that takes away a lot of the magic. Can you picture if, and I know God delivers way better than what we ask for, but to improve on an idea and a wish is a different thing than what it is to have it just created totally outside of yourself. Because to an extent, you'll always have some form of criticism of the situation, because you actually never got to the truth of what you want. And so you're unlikely to really enjoy that, in inverted commas, manifestation if you're not part of the creation. That's the magic. The magic is in watching what you ask for come to life and happen. And so it needs to become quite particular and not get sucked into necessarily the order and the steps and all of that, but what is it that you love? What is it that you want? What kind of support do you want? Again, not to get sucked into the timing, because the timing can be very stifling. Timing is one of those things I believe is best left out there. If I had said, I need that thing to be delivered, the thing I referred to, I need it to be done by Friday, I think it would have taken longer. I think it happened quicker, because I was like, okay, I've done everything I need to do. The rest is up to God. And I never gave a time, and I was just like, well, it must happen in time, whatever that means, in time. And it did, quicker. Yeah. I remember a time when I was much younger. I was in my early 20s, probably from soon after I finished school to my mid to late 20s, where this was somewhat my life. It was how my life worked. If I decided I wanted something, there was no pressure at that time in my life. If I decided I wanted something, I got clear on what it was and I got it. I never had any appreciation as to how I attained this thing and how everything was moving in my favor. I had no appreciation of that. But I now, in hindsight, in retrospect, I'm able to see what changed in my life. And what changed is that the things that I wanted were not what I truly wanted. Yes, they were true at the time, but then what I wanted out of life shifted. And so those things became dissatisfying. And because I had not thought about every aspect, things like true love and peace and joy were not part of my considerations. And so what I was creating was not based in these values. And so as soon as love became a value of mine, as soon as joy and fulfillment and feeling like I'm living my purpose, as soon as those things became important in my awareness, things around me began to fall apart. I mean, seemingly, again, in inverted commas. But that was the process of everything now starting to shift in my favor, in line with what I've asked for. Now, in the process and in the background, a lot of wounds were inflicted, or what do you call it? I sustained a lot of wounds in this season of my life, I'll call it. And that compromised my ability to manifest the way I used to. And so I've basically been on a journey to remember, a journey of remembering how to manifest, how to get what I want out of my life. Because all of those things that happened in my life unconvinced me, untaught me how to manifest. And they untaught me how to feel worthy of what I want. Worthiness was never a consideration. I never saw these links. I never saw these things as linked. And so I was just manifesting away until I wanted to build what was really important to me. I suppose I had lost quite a few things already, and I felt like, what does joy look like to me? What is, So anyway, these are my thoughts. We're almost on 30 minutes. Thank you for listening if you have listened this far. And I just wanted to say thank you. I just wanted to say thank you and to share some of my thoughts as they're happening, as I reflect on this stage of things. Because I'm becoming much more open about what lies ahead. I thought I had a picture set when I started this channel, and this past week has had me really shifting and being open to what that means. Being more open than I ever thought I'd be willing to. Very open, in fact. I wish you a good evening, a good day, a good night, sweet dreams. I hope you get a lot of rest. And I'm wishing you a fruitful week. Sending you love.